Hi there again, everyone. So joined by Kane and Matt again for just another bit of a blog video. The main content today that we're going to be focusing on is the concept of cognitive dissonance. It's actually a concept that we've covered quite recently in a lecture with Andy Proctor. The main outcomes, again, we're just going to discuss what it means to us and the experiences we've had within our coaching philosophies around that. So to kick things off, what does it actually mean to us?
Well, I'm just going to come out with a definition, just so we're clear. So Festinger, 1957, said that cognitive dissonance is when there is a mismatch between values, beliefs, and behaviour.
Yeah.
So, obviously, coming from that, you might believe one thing, such as, I don't know, equal game time.
Yeah.
But then your behaviour might be you might not put a player on because there's a constraint that if you win this game, you win a cup or something.
Yeah. It's an important thing to me as well, where it's massively important in coaching philosophy now, where to have a fully developed coaching philosophy, whatever sport you coach, there's got to be a consistency between that value and that behaviour. But again, like you've just said, it can go out the window sometimes for some coaches where the circumstances just change it. So, if you value development, your behaviour for that would be, equal game time, providing people, so good rotation of players. But then again, like you said, if you're in a cup final, that could perhaps go out the window where if you value in winning, it could.
It goes out of the way for many different reasons, so we'll probably talk about it in a bit. So we've got other things to look at, the constraints behind it all, of sort of like whether the fans are watching, the club, your name, stuff like that. So for me, working at Sale, there's an expectation of what we deliver, so that affects my behaviour because I could act a certain way which I believe is achieving something, but if the club has got an idea that you've got to achieve this a certain way, you've got to conform. So that's been for me. So my main one for that was when I was at Stonyhurst, which is a grammar school. They believed in this old-fashioned pick and go sort of tactic.
Yeah.
I come in as a fresh-faced coach who loves the idea of playing wide, kick the ball, play with a certain style and a bit of attractiveness to watching it. I had to conform through the school as to what they wanted, to the club, which was they wanted this route, not this. And so I had to go against my beliefs, my values, my philosophy of this framework freedom and play. It's very much you do as I say, when I say, in this play. So.
See, one thing for me when I was first starting out as a coach, it's always been grassroots, the level I've coached, but now recently I've been with the Bucks team. But just going back to grassroots, where a big thing for me, a big constraint, and a big contextual pressure is parents, where I've got used to it now, but whenever I'm coaching, there's a parent, always going to be that parent outside. But one thing you've got to know is that most parents, they're not educated as coaches. So they form this judgment, they form this opinion, but in terms of what they see, it's different to what I see as a coach and what the kids see. And as well, if they say to their kids, like, so-and-so is a bad coach because I don't like the way he's done it, their main influencer in their life is their mum or dad, and they're going to believe that, so it's going to give them conflicting views. And again, the only way they can gauge how we coach is just by seeing us stood there putting a cone out. But they very, very rarely see us when we bring the kids in and actually speak to them. So they very rarely see our behaviours, which is, again, sometimes your values kind of can change when you're being watched by a parent, because there's always that pressure, like, in pressure management, like we've mentioned loads, where you're kind of expected to behave to keep their parents want to keep taking them to training every week.
Yeah, well, that's a certain context, and it is completely based on the context. Like, when I coach my kids' team, because my club's ethos, equal game time is a big value.
Yeah.
But completely different context. When I coach my adults' team, that's not a thing. Like, the whole point of them being there, because competitive club is to win. So someone's not going to play if it's a tight game and I feel like they're a less able player that aren't going to do the job.
See, one thing that's interesting as well is just the circumstances, how much they can change that value And even if it just happens the once, like we've mentioned, where if your values development for players, and then your belief would be equal game time, and then your behaviour would be good rotation of players. If you were in a League Cup final or something, and you really wanted to win that game, then that could go out the window, like I've just said. But if you had a player that you hadn't played all game, and you didn't want to sub them on because they had a lower player ability level than the rest of the players, and then the outcome was you won the game for not putting them on, that outcome would be better than putting them on and losing, because the parents again would judge you thinking, oh, he's a bad coach because we lost the game.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times, doing it for your reputation sometimes.
I know sometimes as well, it's not happened to me personally, but I know I've been involved in a situation where the parent was there purely to educate themselves. So they weren't an educated parent, they wanted to get educated. Yeah. So they thought the best way to educate yourself was to watch. But the coach was acting differently due to the fact he was being watched, when actually what was best for the parent was to see him coaching an actual environment. So it was interesting to see that, because obviously depending on the parent depends on what their expectations are of you.
Yeah.
So I know another thing we spoke about, so taking a little bit away from the way it happened with us and to talking a little bit more about professional coaches.
Yeah.
So one of the main things that we spoke about, or I spoke about in the lecture, was about this idea of fans. So fans obviously pay to watch attractive sport. They want to see the team do well, but they more importantly want to watch the team play well. They're not too bothered about results, more bothered about the style of play. They want to watch something good.
Yeah.
So I know Sam Allardyce is very famous for playing this long ball tactic, which is successful with some teams, but it's not really the greatest thing to watch on TV. So he sometimes has to conform with other teams and the hierarchical system in football clubs, because the manager's not the top dog. There's a lot of people above him who then want to sell tickets, and he may be winning games, but he's not selling tickets. So you've got to find a middle ground.
I think going back to what you said before, Luke, obviously there's the argument that values don't change. So when you said that value changes, we could argue it's not necessarily a value, it could be a belief.
Yeah.
Those beliefs do change.
Yeah.
So then that also, this isn't on the topic of cognitive dissonance, but then that makes you think about, as a person, is that really a value to me, or is it just a belief?
Yeah. Your values soften, they don't change. So you could be dead set on something, but maybe just relax a little bit off it. But
I think it's an interesting point as well, that it's kind of like we're selfish in a way, because the values we possess, it's actually not to impress others sometimes, it's just to impress ourselves and to fulfill ourselves. So like when I said now, when I'm coaching, I want to have a good perception of myself. That's for myself. It's not, I kind of don't really consider the feelings of the other people. It's just my own reputation. And it's kind of like a selfish thing where you're thinking about your own representation.
And there's been times, so my one about getting players equal game time and stuff like that, I'm a big believer in it.
Yeah.
But I've had to once backtrack my own, this idea. It's not really my philosophy, but it's more of a belief for me that players should get equal game time, because I've been that kid on the sideline who's driven all the way and sat there in the cold and not got on. So I believe in it, but it's maybe not for me a value. The value is more the development of that, so making that player develop. So, but I've been in a situation where my other two coaching members that I work with are avidly all about winning, and I was like, no, I think we should get him on. We should let him develop. He's in a tough game there. He backs up against the wall. He needs to learn this situation. Yeah. And I've been overruled by my other two coaching members and had to say, right, you're not going on. And we won the game, but I felt really bad for the kid who's driven an hour and a half, 2 hours up to Newcastle to sit on the bench for 80 minutes, which is never great. And thankfully that kid took it quite well, and he was like, well, but I know I'm not good enough. Yeah. But that then morally plays a part. You never want a kid to turn around and say, I know I'm not good enough, because then that then affected my philosophy of this developing.
See,
why is it not developing?
It's interesting that you mentioned where, you know, putting your playing experiences into consideration, because a lot of people that believe that whole equal game time is, like you've just said, they hated it when they weren't put on the starting 11 or starting whatever age it is, starting squad, for not being good enough. And again, it sounds kind of awful to say, but it's not always the coach's fault that you're not good enough.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not.
Some people
coaches shouldn't be responsible for it sometimes, because, like I said before, like some parents have wondered, oh, he's missed that goal, he was 1v1, he should have scored. And they kind of look at the coach like, oh, what, have you been doing something wrong there? But it's not, it's just a mistake, it happens.
Yeah.
So it's kind of not like the coach should be deemed a bad coach, it's just one of them things, it just happens, you miss sometimes.
Well, no, that's one of the things I love to, just going a little bit off topic, when I'm coaching, my coaching days, that's my Tuesday, my Thursday. Your players' day, your playing day, is for your players. So you call it a coaching session, you call it a players' day, so it's a match. The match is for them. So me as a coach, something that I'm really big on is I'm not one to do a lot of coaching on the Saturday, on the Sunday. Yeah. That's for you boys. You boys know what to do. There's not a right lot more I'm going to be able to teach you 10 minutes before kick-off. Yeah. So I do all the coaching Tuesday, Thursday. When it comes to Saturday, I might drip feed the odd message on if it really helps the team. Yeah. But other than that, it's up to you, and I make that clear to the parents. So when the parents turn around and go, why didn't he do that? Yeah. Well, it's on him. Ask him why he didn't do it, because he knows he should do it. I've taught it him. Ask him why he's not done it. So that's sort of, again, a selfish thing, because I'm passing the blame on, but then at the same time, I look at it as in I'm creating more all-round players who are more developed, more creative, more authoritarian as far as they know the system, they know the structure. Yeah. Put the emphasis on them to do it, and then hopefully what that means is then I can just, as a coach, I can slowly start to take a back seat of a role, and I go from doing this much work to gradually over time refining these targets of knowledge.
It's interesting as well how you've got the whole journey in your life where you develop those values and beliefs, because in the lecture, I think it was Andy that was saying it, where you start off at school and you have that PE teacher, you have that whatever teacher in any subject that behaves in a certain way, and you see that and you kind of remember it. Yeah. And then, like, up to now, if you remember the teacher that taught you, you kind of see what they valued through their behaviours. So, like you said before, like, my PE teacher was very authoritarian, if I can say it. Yeah, he was very like that. And it was kind of like the whole my way or no way. Yeah. And now, coaching differs a lot. Coaching's not like that sometimes. So it's kind of like the whole concept of philosophy, it's changed over time.
That's something that really became apparent to me is, I think sometimes there's nothing wrong with authoritarian coaching, and there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. However, you're seeing it slowly drip feed out the game because of these player welfare, this safeguarding, this health and safety. You're seeing less and less of it. Yeah. However, me as a player thinks back to when I was told, you run hard, you run forward, you catch, you go, you catch, you go. And if I'm ever back up against the wall, what do I fall back to? Catch, ball, and I fall back to it. And I think there's got to be some method to the madness, because everybody as a player who's ever had an authoritarian coach will, when back's against the wall in the sport of go, I've got to park the bus, I've got to pass around the back three, I've got to take the ball in and slow
I think
it down.
as well though with the authoritarian, it's like if the coach is having a good influence on the players, and if the players are developing with the coach having that approach, and the relationship between the coach and the athlete's good, then there's nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Carry on.
If it's right for the context of it, right.
Again, it's contextually dependent, but like we say, if it's having a good outcome, then why change it?
But are you not finding that it's becoming less and less?
Oh, yeah.
Because it definitely taught me a lot about discipline, a lot about respect, a lot about the setup that maintains. But now you go to any club, and you see a very large amount of this chaos approach, this play, everything's through games. Yeah, you still go past and you see the odd drill, but even at the drill, there's very much. It's more, and I think I think coaching's going the wrong way to some extent. I think we now need to. We've had it too far this way. I think we're going too far this way. It needs to now be, like as we've said, it needs to be this transition of when do you need it, when do you not, which then comes from this idea of naive and sophisticated epistemology. Where do you want to be? Slap bang in the middle and being able to flip between the two.
Well, like you say, you do need to know really when to use it, what to use and when to use it. I mean, like when me and Luke did our level 1 nearly 4 years ago now, the instructor said to us, you won't fail this course. The only time I've ever failed someone doing this course was because they were very commanding, shouting. So that's just kind of proof that they're forcing it out of coaching, because they're trying to force it out. Because they failed someone for it. So
see, a lot. This is just like me to a T, because this is my dissertation. This is what I'm studying, and it's just so many people that I've spoke to now regarding the topic have just mentioned that it's just the biggest reason for dropout, in their opinion. And when the coaches are shouting at the players, it's obvious. It's not going to make you want to come back every week.
But again, I think
even if the kid's in the wrong, it's still shouting at them sometimes.
But I think that's where it's gone too far, because I know for me, I'm openly honest, I wasn't the greatest of kids. I wasn't the greatest of ones. I was probably one of those you probably did want to shout at and scream at, but it never really did me much harm, because it made me learn where was the boundary. Like, what was it I'd done wrong? Why is it I'd done wrong? If it was in a game, right, well, what was the outcome of my decision? No, it was that. I gave the ball away. What am I supposed to have done? Kept the ball. So next time I went into the situation, I'd learned to keep the ball. So I think you can't take it out of the game. You've just got to make people aware of how you do it. So command approach, or this authoritarian, is not me coming over and going, you're crap, get off, you're not doing that. Right. It's this idea of, right, this is what you should have done. How have you achieved it? What have you got to achieve now? You've achieved the same thing. Authoritarian, you're telling them the information. You're being the authority behind it. But have I raised my voice? No. Have I sworn at the kid? No. So is the kid still going to want to come back? Yes, because I've not. This idea of authoritarian is this instant old 60-year-old bloke with a moustache screaming and shouting in kids' faces. And really, the concept of it is you're the go-to guy for the information. You're the one teaching the information. You're the one giving it. You're the one providing it. Not you're the one screaming it in little Jimmy's face at 6 years old.
I mean, as a coach, it comes down to knowing your players, really, because like there's players that you can do that. You tell them, and they learn from it. There's players that there's no point in telling them because they won't learn from it. You have to try and dig it out from them. So but obviously it can be difficult if you're coaching a whole group. You got to try and pick a style that's going to fit all of them. But if you're doing individual stuff, like I know with you, I could do that command style. With Luke, maybe I might have to do guided discovery. But it just comes down to obviously the context, knowing your players.
I think the use of guided discovery, though, again, it's kind of like a trial and error thing. Where we mentioned mistakes before. Guided discovery is brilliant for that, where you're just trying something yourself and having that ownership to just. It's kind of like chaos coaching, really, where you give them a problem and just say, crack on, and go for it. And a lot of kids, that's the reason they play smart. Sometimes where there's an unusual element to it, where they can just try different things.
But I know as a coach, I love this idea of let players figure it out. Guided discovery is brilliant. If you've got a kid who can figure it out. But there's some times where I've run a session, I've got to the end of the hour and I think, have they achieved it? No. I could have made them understand it 10 minutes in if I'd have just gone, have you considered this as an idea? And how Ur just sat there and gone, right, freeze in this moment in time. Right, what can we do here? You can play there, you can play there, you can play there. Right, how? Give me more reasons, give me more ways, be creative, think about it. Yeah. Oh, I can kick it, I can do this, I can do that.
It kind of goes back to when we mentioned the jungle tiger and the zoo tiger. So where you've got the jungle tiger, if that would be a guided discovery approach, it would be, it's not restricted. It's being adaptable, it's like kind of being comfortable in the uncomfortable, where you've been set a task and there's very little structure to it. The kids are going to have to be able to think and use their brains to overcome that task, whatever it is. Whereas if it's very command, it's kind of like the zoo tiger, where it's very, very routine, very strict, and sometimes the kids don't just want to be spoken to. They kind of just want to kick a ball and play. So it's really that's a really relevant point. Just being comfortable in the uncomfortable. Really.
I think it's a real thing for me though that I'm definitely learning through. I think the problem is everyone's trying to say it's black, it's white, it's this, that. You do one or the other. And actually, what you need to do is you need to create this large grey area in the middle.
Yeah. And
it's not necessarily, I know I'm a command style approach to Luke, I'm a guided discovery to Kane. I know sometimes Kane might not appreciate a command style, but sometimes Kane has got.
Yeah.
And you've got to try and create this big grey area. And what I'm learning as a coach is this grey area is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and then someone drops another blob of black, and I had that. Someone drops another blob of white, and I had that. It's just getting.
See, I had a question, and I was meant to actually ask it at the start, which was, have any of you actually experienced this whole cognitive dissonance? So have you had any environment, any scenario in your coaching life where you've completely gone against a coaching value through your behaviour?
2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I was running an under-18s academy session, and I've very rarely, and I mean very rarely in my life, lose my rag at anybody. I never shout, never really scream, never actually lose my rag with anyone. Bear in mind, this kid's 18, breaking into first team standard, and I was running this game, and he just kept running this one really stupid line. So the game was effectively, you got to pass the ball 2 passes away from a breakdown. Yeah. So wherever the breakdown happened, the ball's got 2 passes away, whether it was out, in, just 2 passes away. And he kept running this stupid line back in towards the breakdown and getting caught.
Yeah.
So, I questioned him. I said, right, look, what's happening, blah, 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 blah. And then I let the first couple slide, and then, I questioned him, and then, I was like, lose my rag a little bit, so I was just turning the ball straight over and not giving him a second chance. I wasn't doing any of this right, rewind, let's go again sort of stuff. Yeah. And he ran it again, and I can just remember I blew the whistle, and I just completely lost my rag. Yeah. I just completely lost it. Steam out the ears. I just went, what the beep are you doing? Yeah. And I just had to go in hard at him.
So was that during a game or a training?
No, this was a training.
Right.
And I just went really in hard at him, and I wasn't pointing at anyone else. I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, I'm doing this. I was like, why are you trying to achieve that? Yeah. Well, what are you trying to achieve this? So what the bloody point is of you doing that? And I just went really in on him, and that's never ever like me. And I was like, right, I'm going to re-go again. So I brought him back, and you'll never guess what he did. He ran the same line. So I just sent him off. I told him to go into the change room and said, right, go and get an early shower, you're not playing, you're off, you're not starting, you're not playing on Wednesday, you're off, change rooms. Yeah. And I sent him inside, and he comes over to me at the end of the session, and he was like, I'm so sorry, but, I understand what you mean. And he started to get it, and the other coach came over to me at the end and was like, he needed that chat, but that was completely against me as a 100% a human. I never lose my rag in that way, ever, really. Yeah. But I just completely blew the lid, completely showed a new side of me no one really ever sees. Yeah. Of this absolute, just why are you being such a muppet? Yeah. And I was like, I was effing, I was jeffing, which is alright because this kid's 18, 19 years old, so the safeguarding issues maybe weren't there. But I just completely blew my rag at him. He's learnt it, he didn't do it. He came in the week after and didn't do it. Yeah. And he's now playing better than ever because he's not running that stupid line. But I tried my bank of knowledge, which is this. rewind, pause, reset, zoom out, get him to look around, get him to walk around, spot the space, all that sort of rubbish.
Yeah.
Then questioned him. Then started just turning the ball over whenever he did it. He was still doing it.
Yeah.
So after my bank of knowledge was out, I thought, what can I do to just get his attention?
Yeah.
Just blow your lid. I did. That was completely my cognitive dissonance. I've just never done it before.
Yeah.
Very rarely do it. And just, it's completely against every value, every belief. This shouting at people, this singling them out. I just thought.
See, I've got one where it was 2 weeks ago now, and like I've not been coaching like at this level for quite a long time, so it's kind of different for me. So with the futsal team, it's books level, so the whole equal game time doesn't really exist. But it was a cup game, not a cup game, it was a game against Manchester, and it was quite a big game. And the referee was like, he was pants, to be fair. He was about 60 years old, he could barely see out of one eye, and he wasn't doing a brilliant job. So even some of the spectators, the players, were making comments on it, which I was fine with. My value of that would have been respect, so treating him whatever his decision is. But it got to something like the first 2 minutes to play, and we were drawing, and then it was like a player was brought down, and it should have been a blatant penalty. And I couldn't hold myself, so I had to just say, like, come on, ref, what's that? And it's kind of gone against my value of respect, but sometimes when you're in that environment, it's just natural to say something. You've got to do something about it, and it's like, the only negative thing I could say is that it might have had a bad influence on the players, because if they're seeing the coach behaving that way, then...
I think yours is a little bit different, because yours comes down to human instinct as well.
Definitely.
The safety of people is paramount.
Yeah.
A big value of mine is safety to players. And if something's jeopardising safety, and the referee is in charge of safety, human instinct comes out as to voice opinions, especially when it comes to safety.
And another thing as well, even if you're not behaving in that way, you're still thinking it. Like even if I didn't act in that way, I'd have still been thinking it. And I think it's natural that a lot of people would even think it.
Oh, I've done it. High tackles.
Yeah.
High tackles in rugby, in from the sides, anything that can affect, especially when I'm in the position of power.
Yeah.
Anything that affects the safety of players that isn't pulled up or at least checked upon by the referee, I think needs to be real. And I struggle because things can go wrong in rugby. It hurts. Getting high tackled is not just something you sort of shake off and get up from.
It's not good.
You can get some serious injuries from it, and when they're not taken as seriously as they should be. Yeah, I'm usually the first one to scream at them, but I think that's more of a safety to play, especially because we're looking after younger athletes as well.
Yeah.
Safety is paramount.
Yeah, definitely. Any concluding comments on anything that we've gone over? Or?
I think as long as you don't get lost in your coaching.
Yeah.
So as long as if you start to ever feel you are in a position where your behaviour is starting to take over your philosophy, your values and beliefs.
Yeah.
I think if ever that happens to you as a coach, you have to try and get yourself out of there. Yeah. Because you remember what you're there to do, remember why you are there in the first place, and you're there to develop and create a positive environment.
Yeah.
And if your behaviour is starting to get too far away from that, not only do you start to feel bad and you start to affect your forms, but it'll start to reflect on those around you.
I think for me as well, with all the reading on philosophy that I've done, just through experience, I think that it's impossible to predict that your philosophy is ever going to be perfect, because you're always going to have, it's just the way the world works really, and it's nature, that you're always going to have them different experiences in any coaching environment. And you know, like when you've got Jose Mourinho, a lot of people think that he's got an amazing philosophy, but it changes on a weekly basis sometimes, and
it has for him.
You've got coaches that have got 30 years experience, and they've still not developed a wholesome philosophy and a reasonably strong one. So, and there's us now where we've not had 10 years experience coaching yet, and it's good that we're kind of trying to underpin what it is and articulate it.
especially for Mourinho, Mourinho's proven you may have a successful philosophy with one team, but it's not a successful philosophy with another team. You've got to. Yeah. So it comes back to you. Your philosophy's got to change depending on where you are, who you are, and this idea of your philosophy's got to be this small. Yeah. It's rubbish. I think your philosophy's got to be huge or forever changing.
And again, it goes back to the two tigers. So the jungle tiger would be a perfect example of a philosophy, whereas your zoo tiger, I think sometimes your philosophy would probably, if you agree, be non-existent really. Because if you're not willing to adapt your behaviours, then your philosophy is non-existent. In my eyes, which would go back to the zoo tiger.
Definitely.
So yeah, good. So thank you for listening, everyone, and we'll see you in the next post.